listening to Into the Arena, a Hunger Games podcast sparking the fandom one episode at a time, with your hosts, Holly and Emily. Special thanks for music by Sam Cushion.
Welcome back, tributes to Into the Arena. I am Emily.
And I'm Holly.
And this week we have a really cool episode since we're approaching 4th of July and we found out in Ballad that the Reaping takes place on 4th of July. We decided to do a Reaping-focused episode. Just a quick reminder, you can follow us on our social media at Into the Arena Podcast on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all the places. Follow us there, and don't forget to join our Ballad read-alongs on Monday nights. So join us tomorrow for that. We're getting close to the end of the book, which is really exciting.
Finally, and then we can talk all about it all we want to. So
I know, we have some really cool Ballad episodes that we've been just waiting to do.
Yes.
So yeah, let's talk all about the Reaping.
I think this was one of my favorite little things that we learn in Ballad, that the Reaping is on July 4th, because it's not revealed in the original trilogy. We just all assumed it was summertime based on how the weather is described and how it compares to the Victory Tour, etc. But the fact that it's explicitly stated in Ballad, I think just was Suzanne pushing again and saying, here's what you missed in the original trilogy, and here's what I'm trying to show you right now. So it hit a little too close to home.
I wonder if anybody had theorized that it was July 4th. I can't remember the exact, if there were months stated in Catching Fire, when things were happening. But in my head, the Reaping was always pretty soon after Katniss's birthday.
Yeah, I always thought it was June.
Yeah, but that wasn't true. I didn't get this from myself. I am not this smart or observant, but I was on Reddit looking at, what people kind of thought about it being July 4th. And someone was saying that, it's really a parallel of the US and thinking about how on the 4th of July, there's an oppressed people who aren't really celebrating, and then the people who are, and there were people who really weren't free at all on 4th of July.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not exactly the same. The districts are just oppressed. They do have some element of freedom.
Yeah.
They're not enslaved people, but I just think it was really an interesting parallel and something to think about.
No, yeah, you put in your notes for this week, you put a quote from Frederick Douglass. I don't know if you wanted to read it.
Oh, yeah, I did.
But
should look at my own notes.
Yeah, that was, when I read that, I think it was awesome what you wrote in comparison to it.
Yeah, the quote by Frederick Douglass, who was an enslaved person who ended up being free later in his life, said, "What to the slave is the 4th of July. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn." And I was like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
That feels very similar to Worth It's a Day of, especially what it becomes later on in the main trilogy, a day of celebration, a day of festivities, of excitement for the capital citizens.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
I know. And I think by Suzanne making it July 4th and having the books take place in North America, she's literally just saying, this could be us. We're not far from this distant future. She never gives us a time for when this dystopia could happen, but we always relate the themes and the ideas and the experiences to what is happening currently. And when I read that, especially last year in 2020, I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, I think this is definitely probably my favorite, like I said, my favorite thing that we learned from Ballad. And it makes the Hunger Games just so much more meaningful too.
Yeah, just that whole book, and that's one of the things that bubbles to the top as the coolest detail.
Yeah, right at the beginning.
Yeah, spoiler, I guess.
Yeah, so if
you
haven't read Ballad by now, yes,
exactly.
I think another cool thing that we learned about was the rigged reapings, because it is confirmed, again, spoilers, it is confirmed in ballot that Lucy Gray being raped was rigged. So we
Mhm.
know that it does happen. And so on different occasions, you have to wonder like who is actually picked. And I mean, a lot of the people in the fandom say that her reaping was rigged based off of her connections to Finnick, and Finnick like prostituting himself and listening to Snow. It was another way to, instead of killing her or doing something to his family or his loved ones, they just put Annie Cresta into the games. So that's
I
like
can
another
see that.
theory.
It's like, oh, there's one star-crossed lovers pair. Let's add another.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's really interesting to think about like going back now that we know that it's been confirmed that at least in one of the games a tribute was rigged. And I'm sure like I mean we could honestly make the assumption that maybe even Marcus was rigged because of his connections to Sejanus, and they knew that someone from his specific class, like they could have picked somebody within the few years, whereas Sejanus and Marcus were in a class like in the same year together growing up, you know?
I feel
So
like Marcus isn't. I don't want to believe that that one's rigged just because I just want to believe that Sejanus is really unlucky.
no, see, I think that's the thing. Like now that I know it's one has been rigged, I go back and I think, okay, which ones have been rigged? And honestly, you can make justifications that every single one of them are rigged and for particular reasons.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it's not like necessarily this one mastermind person who's rigging all the reapings because Lucy
Hmm.
Gray's is the
Hmm.
mayor rigged it. So I don't know
Which,
that like one justifies like all the rest of them happening.
yeah, because I mean, a big one is people wondering about Prim being rigged. That's been a big like debate within
I
the
don't believe
fandom.
that. I don't believe
I
that for
don't
a second.
I don't believe it either, but I mean, a big argument was that because Katniss was hunting for years and years outside of District 12, and she talks about how many laws she's broken, they punished Prim. But I mean, I can see why they would punish Prim, but it's almost like too small of a like no one would tell on Katniss because all the peacekeepers buy from Katniss. So even if it was a local thing, plus everyone in District 12 loves Prim, there's no reason that they would have spotted this random girl and her sister from the capital. So I think that's why I have a hard time with it, but lots of people do argue for Prim's reaping being rigged.
I have a hard time with it because I would rather believe that the odds just
Yeah.
weren't in her favor. You
Yeah.
know, it's just the fact that there were so many names, like thousands of names in there,
Hmm.
and there's still the possibility. I don't know. I feel like it says something about hope too, like in the positive. It's like a 1 in a million chance, right? But
Hmm.
it can also be a 1 in a million chance for something good to happen.
Hmm.
I don't know. I just like the story better with
Yeah. And
it
I think
being that one slip.
yeah, besides like obviously Prim being the whole reason Katniss goes into the arena, when I first started reading the book for the first time, I kind of just thought, oh, Katniss is probably going to be reaped and all this. But I, again, like you said, it's the one name that Prim has. And I think that that is much more interesting than just reading your protagonist first person perspective getting reaped
Mhm.
and then watching her go through that. But instead, she steps up and goes through it for someone else.
And I just like that, like Katniss against it, like did everything she could, and
Hmm.
then that one line, like, but I'm powerless against the reaping.
Yeah.
That one slip could still do it. I don't.
Hmm.
I just don't. I don't like the idea that it's rigged.
Yeah. Or same
I
with
will believe that Prim is the daughter of Mr. Mellark before I'll believe that
yeah, me too.
she was rigged in her
Me
reaping.
too. But we know talking about games as opposed to like reapings, we know that the 75th games according to the movie canon was rigged because there's a deleted scene with Plutarch going and changing the slip of paper for what the quell was going to be about. So we don't know if that's for sure what happens in the book, but I mean that's just an example of the games themselves being rigged a certain way. And then it makes you wonder like did they purposely pull Hamish's name so Peeta could volunteer? I don't like because they just want to get rid of
Mm,
Katniss and Peeta, you know? So
I think so. I think they had to have both of them in the arena. So I
Yeah.
can totally see that being rigged
Yeah.
because they knew that Peeta would volunteer.
Hmm.
Do we want to talk about volunteering? Because
It is so confusing, but it's mostly like theories. Like I just wrote down like different theories that I read and different ideas that I've always thought it's been.
oh, interesting. I
Yeah.
did not look up any theories or anybody's ideas on that. It's just in the book it says that volunteering in districts 1 and 2 is very complicated. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean very complicated? I know the books are in your perspective, but
Hmm.
come on, explain it all.
But I also think that it's interesting because we don't even know if Katniss or anyone in District 12 knows how the volunteering works in those districts.
Yeah.
Like, because it's so complicated, like, is she just not telling us, or does she just not, they just don't tell the other districts?
Do they
And
get to see the reapings?
yeah, they can watch the reaping.
I would think so because we learn in Ballad also that they're all, I mean, it's live, so they all take place
Mhm.
at different times. And District 12's is first,
Yeah.
which is an interesting little tidbit.
Which is weird because in the Hunger Games, it's just all jumbled together. Like Katniss is like, we watch the recordings all at once, so we don't know like what times or where
Yeah,
or the
watching like
situation.
playbacks.
Yeah.
What hit me about reading that in Ballad, I don't know, I just think it's cool that hers was first because thinking of the Hunger Games and her volunteering, like that reaping kicked off reaping day.
Yeah.
Like how exciting that must have been for all the Capitol people. She set the bar, literally. I mean,
Way too high, and that's probably why Cato and Clove especially hated her because they took their thunder.
she upstaged them.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
So yeah, I think that's also interesting that Katniss doesn't even know how it works. But I mean, my original theory on, do you like have a theory for how you think that it goes, how the reapings go in 1 and 2?
I mean, I guess I just always assumed it was the first person,
Really?
but that doesn't really make sense. I mean, there's going to be so many people volunteer. Like, is there a secondary reaping of the people who want to volunteer?
See, I always thought of it as like a longer process. So I thought that it had something to do with like training because we do read that there are like illegal training processes because obviously how do all these 12 to 18-year-olds know how to use a sword or
Why does it sound like you're going to like make this divergent? Like,
no,
like Dauntless.
it is like Dauntless, I think. I think honestly, instead of like a cute little football game after school, like you go and do your academics, a part of the schooling and education is like physical activity and gym. And I think it's like half the day is academics, half the day is preparing for the games. And then I think as you get older and older, it starts weeding people out. So, for example, like we're watching Cato move through his class, and then I think it comes down to watching these kids for years and years and watching how big they grow up to be and how good they are at their skills. I feel like there's a lot of tests and a lot of fights, and I think it is a lot like living in Dauntless, honestly, like the top one goes. And then I just think that, like, I read a theory that it could go towards like the valedictorian of that year because if you're thinking like you have the school year, which ends in like May, June in the US. And so um, that way, the person who's been training and training and training for years and years, the careers are always 16 to 18 for the most part. But they've been training, putting in this work. They graduate at the top of their class and they're picked out of like a small pool of individuals. And then I've also heard different theories where those top individuals physically like compete against each other, and the one that competes the best and the men and the woman is going to be the one who gets to volunteer in the end. So it's almost like a training process for years and years. I think it's worked into their academics because how could they be that good just training casually on the side? Like I think it's incorporated into their everyday life, and that's why they're brainwashed, is because starting at a young age they're brainwashed into this is what I need to do and this is how I need to get there. So that's what I believe happens. That's always what I've thought. But the valedictorian top of the class thing, does give me Dauntless vibes.
But at the same time, though, like I want to believe all that. That sounds, I like that world building, but
Hmm.
it's still technically illegal. So I feel like it would have to be more subtle
But I feel like the
than
Capitol
that.
turns its cheek to that. And I mean, I was another theory is somebody's like, oh well, the Capitol just they report to the Capitol and tell whoever is the most strongest, most capable, and give them like a list of a few students, and then the Capitol can pick from them. I also think because one that we skipped over that you wrote down was Glimmer, because Glimmer was potentially,
Mm,
I argue that her reaping was rigged. And so maybe there could be a lot of like um, bribing and power involved with getting your kids into the games, viewed as a sport, and it's viewed as like the ultimate celebrity accomplishment, everything. And so I think parents fight for their kids to be in the games if they are
so I feel
powerful.
like there has to be like a secondary reaping or something. Like maybe people can sign up like
Hmm.
ahead of time to say that they want to volunteer, but then because I don't think everybody volunteers.
Oh no. I think
So
they
it's
have
just
to
gotta be
allow
this
people
like
to volunteer.
more like this higher class
Hmm.
of people in districts 1 and 2.
Hmm.
Which, man, if you were gonna live in Panem, I guess District 1 and 2 is the place to live if you don't want to be in the Hunger Games,
Yeah.
because there's plenty of people to volunteer.
Hmm. In Ballad, we see just like the social class differences in the capital, just as we do in District 12. So you can assume it's the same in Districts 1 and 2.
I just want to know, like, Suzanne needs to write a guide and then volunteering. It could be a
Hmm.
section and it can
Yeah.
be explained.
See, I just honestly have settled on my thoughts, and I call that my own, like that's canon to me. I'm just like, I've thought about this for so many years that that's how I see it. I feel like we're never gonna find out, so I'm just gonna give myself that token
No, we're never
and
gonna
no.
find out. Maybe we need our own like fan made guide that's not official,
Ooh.
but like here's a list of all the a bunch of different theories
Hmm.
that people have come up with and choose your own adventure of what you
Wouldn't
think
that
is
be
canon.
perfect? Yeah, present all the facts.
What I don't understand about volunteering is like why it even exists. Like why are other people allowed to volunteer? I don't really get it.
I think like I've never thought about it, but maybe it almost gives the facade of hope and freedom, because if you were just picked every single year, you could argue like, oh, the I mean, we know the government is corrupt, but you could just make more of a an argument as to why the Capitol is so corrupt and we don't even have a say in this, so it's hopeless. Whereas if people can volunteer, then it makes more of a show. There's more emotions tied to it. And on the same note, it's almost like one of the most important lines is like how far family goes on reaping day or lack thereof. And so I think it
Yeah.
just shows another sort of hold that the capital has on the poorer districts, that even they
Mm.
control your family and they control how much you can even love and show that love for your family.
Ugh, Holly.
Yeah. So I was just
That
like,
hurt.
rip. Rip. But yeah, and
That's true.
the
I mean, I
capital,
feel
they
like
just
it
get the
could
vibe.
create resentment even amongst like family members.
Hmm.
Ugh, as well as like classes.
Yeah, because I mean, like, for example, say you and I are sisters and I'm reaped, and it's just automatically like that, and there's no volunteering, then it's like you could have told me, oh, I would have volunteered for you, blah, 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 and our relationship would be
Like, yeah,
perfect.
if I could take your place, I would.
Yeah, exactly. But
Well, you
then
can.
you can take my place, but like, would you? So like that's how it is. Like Peta's
Mm,
brother does not volunteer
man, the
for him.
psychological like guilt probably
Yeah.
of then like your sibling dying
Hmm.
and you having not taken their place.
Which I just think is like even worse. It's just the capital is literally like clawing you apart from your family and controlling yet another aspect of your life that almost appears like a sense of freedom, but isn't.
I kind of feel like more people would actually volunteer
And like, what do you mean?
than
In real life?
just Katniss does.
I don't know if I would. See, I love my sister more
Then again,
than
I'm like, yeah, I
anything.
wouldn't, but
Yeah. See,
I
I
don't know, but
love
I feel like there are other people that would. But maybe that's just, I don't
I
know,
think
being too optimistic.
I think it's almost like, again, the luxury of us not having to be in that situation, because I feel like there are people that would say that they would, but it just makes it like,
But
even as
would
the
they really?
reader, yeah, as the
I don't want to
reader.
find out. So
No, exactly. Like, and I think that's the really powerful part about having the perspective of the reader and not being in that situation is I feel guilty even thinking about if I would or if I wouldn't. You know, like maybe some days I say I would, and then some days I'm like, I don't want to
yeah.
die, but we're not actually in that. So again, it's like this whole another guilt that is placed onto us as an outsider, which I think is so cool.
Yeah. I feel like that was one of my favorite, like, I mean, it's dark, but takeaways from the Hunger Games is like, what would I do? What would I
Yeah.
do? Like
Yeah.
in Katniss's position. And it's it's a
Comment
brutal reality.
comment down below if you would volunteer for your sibling. I feel like that'd be an interesting Instagram story post, just a yes or no poll. Yeah.
Would you volunteer?
Oh my gosh, maybe I'll do that when
Yeah,
this
do it.
episode
Do it,
comes out.
Holly.
And see, we should have done it before this episode, before we recorded it, because then we would have had the facts. And be honest when I ask.
Oh yeah. Mine's a no.
Yeah, mine would be a hard no. But that's why we aspire to be more like Katniss. We already talked about this in our We Love Katniss episode. So going back and rereading the reaping scenes from Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Ballad, I haven't reread Catching Fire in a hot minute, but just reading how short that section is, literally less
Yes.
than a page.
Honestly, every scene when I go back and reread it in the books is shorter than
Hmm.
I think it's gonna be because the movie fleshes out things a lot.
Yeah.
And I forget that because it's so the information we get is pretty limited in the books in terms of like building and like what's going on around Katniss and even Katniss's emotions and what she's thinking we don't always get.
I think that's why I get kind of upset with it, because I mean the catching fire reaping scene is probably like 5 minutes long. Like it's pretty long for a movie scene, but I don't know, it's like we could have had other things in there too. I don't think you needed to
But
like
it makes it so
focus.
emotional.
I know,
But
but
then
it's
again,
like
it was emotional reading it for the first time. But then
just like
you go
numbing,
back and read it and it's so short and there's like a lack of detail.
definitely.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because I was looking at differences between like the book and the movie, and in Catching Fire, they're like not on the stage. I just read it and I'm like, oh, these are interesting like visual choices like
Hmm.
that make things more impactful. I don't know. I just think it would have been so funny if they were like in their little like roped off section like
Oh
in front
my
of the
gosh.
stage.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I wish we would have seen Haymitch fall off the stage in the first one. Like,
I know. Yeah, that's a big difference for sure. Hey Mitch is like not even there. But his introduction in the movie is good
hmm,
too. But it would have been, I think, more powerful if he fell off the stage.
yeah, definitely.
It's interesting too, like it's just a little detail, but in the Hunger Games, how they stand like in the roped off sections, it's the youngest people in the back and the oldest people in the front. Whereas in the movie, like Prim, she's close to the front. It's the youngest people. And then Katniss, like with the older kids, is in the back. Which I get like visually for the movie. I think that makes sense
Hmm.
because you want to be able to see everybody's faces.
Yeah.
But I wonder why the little kids are in the back. I mean, it seems sad to me because if a little kid gets picked, then they have a really long walk to the stage.
It's like the walk of shame for
Yeah.
children getting raped. They just gotta
Uh,
make their way
how
through the parting
awful.
crowd. Maybe it's just to make them feel worse. Like if you have an older sibling or something, like there's a lot more time for you to volunteer. And if you're not going to volunteer, then I think it's just set up
Ooh,
in a way that makes you
also,
feel more guilty.
it's like the older you get, the closer you get to the reaping stage.
Oh, and then like you're 18 and you're
Every
almost
year
free, and then you
you
get
get
raped.
closer. Ah!
Yeah. Ugh. See, I can't even imagine the anxiety. Like, I would be sick every single reaping day. Sick, sick. Nervous vomiting, nervous crying.
I
And like,
mean, I think like reading the reaping scene again too, like Katniss, when it comes down to it, she's thinking about all these things. She's thinking about, oh my gosh, I hope Gail doesn't get picked. I hope
mhm,
Prim doesn't get picked. But when it comes down to it and Effie's gonna pick it, she's like, I hope it's not me. I hope it's not me. I hope it's not me.
yeah.
You know, like you feel that anxiety.
Well, yeah, because you have to think at that moment, like if you're standing in the girls section and she pulled out a name, she's about to read it, you're just praying that it's not going to be your name. It doesn't matter who else's name it is, as long as it's not yours. Same within the guys section, it's that one moment where your name is about to come and you're like, please, please do not have it be me. And then it potentially is. And like I think another aspect of the reaping that I find really interesting is because it's not talked about as much, except for in Catching Fire during the Quell, is friendship and having a friend being reaped into the games. Because with Maisley Donner, she was really, really good friends with Katniss's mom,
Hmm.
and she had a sister, right? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, yeah,
They're
twin
twins,
sister.
yeah. And so just like seeing the effect that it would have, like knowing, like watching your friend get pulled up there, because I mean, that would be traumatic too. You're like celebrating for yourself and your family, but then you're going to have to spend the next few months watching all the horrible games happen to people that you care about outside of your family. And at such a young age, so it's traumatic no matter what.
I just can't imagine. I mean, you really see Katniss's mom really went through it
Hmm.
multiple times.
Yeah. And then another thing, I feel like we talk about the qual a lot. We haven't really talked about the 25th games, which I was talking to a friend the other day explaining like how would you decide, because the whole first quell was
Oh,
you
I
could pick
forget
somebody.
about that.
Yeah, you have to pick the two tributes from your district.
Oh my
So
gosh, I cannot imagine.
like
Can you
how do you
imagine getting
pick?
picked?
Like, would you I was asking my friend, I'm like, would you pick somebody that you think, like, say you're from the poorer districts, you're not from the careers. Imagine we're in District 12 or something. Would you pick somebody that is more likely to win the games, like a sort of Gale figure, a big, strong 18-year-old? Or would you pick someone weak and then just say, it's a sacrifice, just get it out of the way?
I think I would vote for somebody who I thought could win.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. And
It's terrible either way.
I just I don't remember, I don't think that the kids can vote for each other. I think that it's only like the parents of the kids, and
Mm,
like you have to be outside of the reaping age to vote for who. So I mean, again, there's a lot of mentions of betting on different people. So again, I think that if you were an adult and you were someone who bets, you're probably going to pick somebody, like you said, who's more likely to win the games. But that's just not a good situation to be in if you just happen to be like very well built or very strong and they
like
just go, you're going in.
I don't have any skills. I can't win.
Yeah, or you're like 18, it's the last year that your name's entered in the reaping, and then
Yeah, they
we
wouldn't
pick
pick an
you.
18-year-old.
Yeah. I just always wondered, like, I would love to see, I think that games, just to see the selection process based on like a community turning on each other. Just so cool.
It would be interesting to see, yeah, the lineup of everyone because it was probably either really strong people or
Mhm.
really weak people.
Yeah, which is just like sickening either way you look at it.
See,
Yeah.
then it's like you pick somebody who you think would probably, under normal circumstances, be able to win the games.
Hmm.
But then it's like if they're going against all these people who are
Yeah.
similar, then they probably don't really have that good of a chance. Or if you pick someone who's really weak, there's definitely going to be big contenders that year.
Hmm.
So they definitely aren't going to make it. I mean, another option, what if they chose someone, like they voted for a kid of a parent that they didn't like?
Yeah.
Like, what if the mayor is just really nasty or something? And
Well,
I feel like the
yeah.
mayor's kid
Oh my
would definitely
gosh.
be a choice.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, or like just somebody who your own kid, you
I
could
mean, I
see.
guess it's a good thing that the kids can't vote because they would just vote for the kid that they don't like.
Can you imagine that? But it's worse because parents are having to choose other children.
What is the actual quote that Katniss says?
Let me see.
Does she say that like the kids can't vote, or is it just like the
Let me
district
look up.
chose and it's really vague?
On the 25th anniversary, as a reminder to the rebels that their children were dying because of their choice to initiate violence, every district was made to hold an election and vote on tributes that would represent it. So I guess it doesn't say like the adults would be doing it, but I would just assume that it would be.
How vicious would that be
Yeah.
if that the kids could choose?
Or just watching, because if it's an election, like going to vote, like going to that poll to vote and knowing that you're walking away from voting for someone else's child, like, and then having to look that person in the eyes, and then the day of, so that's, there's an election and then there's a reaping, so it's just all this more anxiety building up. I think that's almost worse, like it is worse to me than being in an arena with 47 other kids, because knowing that you're going into the games,
Yeah.
I would feel like they picked me. Why did they pick me? And I would just analyze that. And even if you win the games and you come home, you'll just feel completely like they didn't even have my back. Like my home didn't even have my back. My community wasn't even there for me.
And then they get all these rewards of food and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I can't imagine being that parent too.
I know.
Like, especially if the kid doesn't make it.
Yeah, and then
And
going
being like,
around
you all
town.
killed my child.
Yes, exactly.
Ugh.
That's why I think that I'm glad that we got to talk about this games, because I feel like it's really overlooked a lot of times.
Yeah, to be honest, I never really think about it.
Yeah. I just think about all the other like quells, what they would have been. Or if it's canon for Suzanne Collins in the book that,
That it was changed
yeah, what was
for
the
the
original
75th. What was
third
it?
quill? Yeah.
Whatever. They don't happen anymore. There's no more games. So,
But I just want to know. That's
which
all I want.
begs the question for me, like
Hmm.
what does Reaping Day look like post Mockingjay?
I think it turns into memorial, a sort of memorial day for them.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too, because in the epilogue of Mockingjay, it says like the memorials are built. Like, I would think that that's the day that they would remember
Hmm. I mean, just
fallen tributes.
imagine Katniss and Peeta and Hamish and all the victors that live past Mockingjay and having to like relive that reaping day for the rest of their lives, even though they know they're safe. Just imagine that sense of PTSD with having a date and with knowing like come
Yeah.
summertime, this is just a reminder of what used to be. So I think it's interesting because right now as the US, the July 4th holiday is celebrated for the most part. It's celebrated and not celebrated, and it's really, I mean, politicized too recently. And so, I mean, going from that to what we see reaping, the reaping day being like when the games exist, to a more reflective period, I could see it just having a lot of like, I don't know. I just see it being like a memorial day, looking back on the start of this nation going onwards and the dark history that it brought with it.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. I was remembering that I think I told you about this. I had
Mhm.
written like 2 pages of a fan fiction, which I totally forgot about. And it was about President Snow's granddaughter. And I
Mhm.
had her and Katniss meet on on like Reaping Day because I had
Mhm.
turned that into like a Memorial Day, like in the future
Oh my
after
gosh.
post Mockingjay.
Yes. Wait, so how old were you when you wrote this? I remember you told me about it.
um, I mean high school.
Can you
'Cause
publish
I
it?
read The Hunger Games. It's only
Can
like
you
2 pages. It's not even
I just want to read a little. I just want to read a little bit of
the
Emily's fan
beginning of it.
fiction. Yes, that's all I want.
Maybe.
See, and then this is like a
Maybe
whole
I'll
nother.
keep working on it.
You should. A whole nother
It'd be fun.
topic that we can talk about on a completely different episode would be, how does Snow even have a family? And who is Snow married to?
Well, I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
valid.
yeah. So
Gives
once we
us
get
some
through Ballad,
clues.
we have to talk about this. So yeah, lots of spoilers in this episode, but otherwise, I
I
mean,
mean, not huge spoilers. They're little things.
but yeah, they're little things, but like read the book if you haven't already.
I
So
mean, we're about to go full-blown spoiler
yeah.
once we finish Ballad.
Oh,
Then
definitely.
don't listen anymore
Yeah.
until you finish the book.
Yes. So do that now. Start now. Get ahead, and then join us soon as we do all our fun ballad stuff, and hopefully the movie comes. But on that note, happy July 4th. It's coming up. I think we're
Happy
publishing this
Reaping Day.
episode. Yeah. A
Or
week
post
before.
Mockingjay Memorial Day.
I know it's gonna be all sorts of different things. So I know as I'm gonna be like hanging out on July 4th. That's all I'm gonna be thinking now that I have
I know.
that new
Now that we
perspective.
know,
Yeah.
it's just
So
it's Reaping Day.
so everyone be a little anxious that day, and be thankful that we're not being reaped for we're not being chosen by
Now
our
or
community.
ever.
Please keep it that way. But yeah, otherwise, join us. I mean, do you have anything else to talk about, Emily, regarding it?
I don't think so. I
Sweet.
have an announcement that my mom and my sister have both started rereading The Hunger Games. So
What? Oh my gosh.
I know, exciting.
Yay. Okay, so when your sister went to Hawaii, she actually did
Yeah, she
want
actually
to.
took it. She actually read it, and then me and
Oh
my
my
family went on
gosh.
vacation up north in our state, and she was reading it, and then my mom saw she had it, and so she took it and she was reading it. So then she went back home to the thrift store and
Oh my
found the
gosh.
foil editions somehow at a thrift
Whoa.
store. And she's rereading the books now too.
Okay,
So
the ladies of Emily's family, I am so happy and am so amazed and so proud of you. And everyone just support Emily's family because that's awesome.
although I will say, Laura, my sister, she is kind of like, I don't know about this. This ain't all that. Like, what are you talking about? She's only on like chapter 8, so
Oh, girl, you just wait.
just wait till you get to the Peeta and Katniss
Because our
goodness.
Katniss cosplayer. Okay, okay. That's so funny. Yeah, well, that's an amazing announcement. That's what I needed to cheer me up after this
All
sad
right,
debate, sad
happy
little talk.
ending.
Yes.
Leave
So
on some positive thoughts.
yeah, everyone enjoy. If you are from the US, if you're not, happy Independence Day. If you celebrate, happy Reaping Day, happy July 4th, just hanging out day, whatever. Thanks for tuning in. Join us Mockingjay Mondays. We're reading Ballad. Like Emily said, we're almost done. Almost done. So happy. And then we'll likely start the original trilogy for our read alongs on Mondays.
Yay!
Yay! And then, yeah, just stay tuned for next episode in the next 2 weeks.
Thanks for joining, guys.
Thanks. Bye.